driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're passing off to the stars tonight.
Hey, today we might ruffle some feathers because we are blowing the lid off calorie counting. And I love this because calorie counting is so exhausting. I don't know if you've ever tried calorie counting, but it takes a lot of work. You know, you got to get an app. At least now there's apps, but you have to, weigh your food and know what the calories are and write them down and or put them into your app or whatever you do. But it takes work. So we're going to blow the lid off calorie counting today. We are going to talk about the biggest factors for excess weight and obesity and what causes it. And, I just want to point out there's so many factors. We're each unique. There's a lot of different things that play into it. You can't even imagine how many factors. And there's probably as many factors as there are people on this earth. But we're talking about, high level major, that two top is what we're going to talk about. And then how do we know that we're full? I think that's really important because if we're not full, we keep scrounging around looking for food. But once we get full, we can kind of move away and do something else. And then we're going to show you a couple of examples of why a calorie is not a calorie. All right. So how are you ladies today? We're ready to get right into this.
I'm doing great. How are you too?
Good stuff. Kathy's good too.
Doing well, Deb.
Yay. All right. So let's get going. All right. So I want to start with a myth that's out there. I don't hear it a ton, but I know it's out there that excess fat is a result of our sedentary lifestyles. And so that I know that, people will, I've seen this, I'm exercising so much and I'm not losing any weight. And excess exercise does play a role in our lifestyle. And I'm not against exercise. I am for exercise. But when it comes to excess fat and losing weight, the scientific evidence, and it's important, there's lots of scientific evidence that concludes that exercise is a minor contributing factor to excess fat. The largest factors are our high fat, low fiber diet. That's the largest factor. So we need to pay attention to that, which is the biggest determining factor for us. So let's kind of look at that today. So the two major causes of weight management problems: excess fat concentration in our diet, and then the removal of and damage to plant fiber. So if for the last week, and I'm talking about food addiction over the last few days here on our daily energy bite. And when it comes to food addiction, we talked about the SOS, which is the high sugar, oil, and salt in our foods. And so when we have processed foods, which is about 60% of the average person's intake of food, they tend to be higher in fat. If you go to a restaurant, you're probably getting higher fat concentration because fat tastes yummy. That's the thing. So when you're getting your food, it probably has more fat than you think it does to make it taste good. And the other thing that happens is during the processing, they can be removing the fiber and also or damaging the fiber, plant fiber. So those are basically the two major causes of weight management processes. And I would hazard a guess, although I didn't look this up, that processed foods are a major cause of food addictions. I know my food addictions were all around processed foods, cakes and candy and sugary treats and salty things like potato chips and I don't know, nacho chips and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, they definitely are a big thing, the processed foods. Um, and so let's go on. So, here's why fiber is so important. So, when it comes to calorie counting, the fiber doesn't register in the calorie counting because we don't use the fiber as a fuel. The fiber is used by our microbiome and all of the microbes and organisms in our gut or our microbiome as fuel for them. So, and that is a huge part of our um, um, health is our microbiome health. And the research on the microbiome is fairly new when it comes to, what we've known about food. There's a lot of new information, and definitely we use the fiber in plant foods to fuel our gut and the microbes in our gut, but it doesn't come into play when you're talking about calories. But what fiber does is it increases the stretch receptor activity in our stomach. And we'll talk a bit more about that. But the stretch receptor is basically how we are able to, one of the ways we're able to know when we're full. And also, removing fiber means there's less bulk per calorie consumed. So I think it goes without saying that the fiber basically adds bulk to it. And of course, our standard Western diet, when we're eating processed foods, is deficient in fiber. In addition to processed foods having less fiber, especially less plant fiber, or they may have damaged plant fiber because it doesn't look like a plant anymore. It doesn't look like an apple when they put it into a granola bar anymore. So it's also important to note that animal products do not contain any fiber. All of the fiber we're going to find is coming from plant sources. And so this is one of the reasons that plants are a key to our diet and what we eat. And so when it comes, we have these satiety factors in our stomach. And the first one is our stretch receptors. So this is how we get full. So the stretch receptors detect the volume of food that's in our stomach and that we've consumed. And when you eat, these receptors are activated and the stomach extends and sends signals to the brain to let it know the brain know that we are receiving food, that the stomach is receiving food. And so that's where we get the stretch receptors come in for sure. And that's the first one. There is the nutrient receptors. So in addition to the stretch receptors, the nutrient receptors will also detect the presence of nutrients in the food and in the stomach. So this is going to be protein and fiber for sure, stimulate these receptors and signal to the brain that we have nutrient-rich foods being consumed. And this also contributes to us feeling full. And maybe part of the reason when I eat a bag of chips, that I don't feel full because there's no nutrients coming in. It's all processed foods. There are also hormonal receptors or signals that come in. So there is the hunger hormone, which actually is released to let us know, hey, I think we need some food here. And then when we get the food, there is the hormone that actually will be sent to say, hey, we got the food now, we're good, like we're good. And our human body is so amazing that we have all these different signals and stuff. There's the neural signaling, which is the stomach communicating to the brain through the vagus nerve and the neural pathways that, hey, this is where we're full, we're getting full now, so that we're satisfied, we can stop eating. And I know one of the reasons that we are asked to eat slower or to make sure we eat slow and take our time is to give that neural signaling time to actually take effect. If you eat really fast, your brain has to catch up, and that signal has to catch up to you. And so this is why they say to take at least 20 minutes to eat. And then there's the gastric emptying rate. And so the rate at which our stomach actually empties is actually to get the contents into the intestine also affects how we feel, if we feel full, on our satiety. And so foods that are high in fiber and protein slow down the rate that the stomach empties, and it takes longer for our stomach to empty. And so we will stay full for longer. And so this helps us as well. And I know when I eat my veggies, I also know that I will feel full for longer on that note. Okay. And so let me see. What I wanted to do is give you a little demo now. I'm going to show you a little demo. This is my fun here. I have a mason jar, and this mason jar represents the stomach. This is like 4 liters, and I think it's pretty close to what a stomach would hold. And what I did is I took 300 calories and I put it into the stomach. Now, in this first jar, I put 300 calories of oil in it. So this would be probably the oil you would get if you ate a salad, then we could put some lettuce in here, and you have the oil. This is how much oil. So this is 300 calories of oil. So imagine if you're eating, like this would give you, I had 25 potato chips was about 150 calories. So this would be 50 potato chips worth of oil here, because we kind of did that test last week, I think. We did the test on the potato chips. And so this is about how much oil. And so you can imagine your stomach is not full at all. And the other thing about this is there's no fiber in this oil. So what happens is it goes absorbed straight into your body. There's no fiber at all. And so there's very little to digest. But I know we don't eat oil all by itself, but I think it gives you a good representation if you're eating really high fat things. Now, the next thing I did is how many people grab a bar, some kind of a bar to kind of, don't have time. I'm running out the door, or I'm going to be up away, so I'm going to grab a bar. And they could be very nutritious bars. So here's 320 calories of bars. If I stick it into my stomach, it's still not I mean, it's not anywhere near full. And so these bars, got two different bars. The Lara bar here actually has got good ingredients. It's only got three ingredients in it: cashews, cashews, and what else? I can't read it. I'm old. No, I'm not old. Hang on, give me a second. Oh my gosh, I need new glasses. Okay, cashews, dates, and apples, dried apples. So, like, these are good ingredients. You know, I think if you read this on a label, you'd say, hey, this is a good bar. It's only got 3 ingredients. And again, these are dried, so they're compressed, and you don't have the natural liquids that you would have if you're eating like an apple or a date. Well, dates would be pretty dry. So that's like 220 calories. And then this is another bar. It's a granola bar. It's 100 calories for this. And that one has a bunch of ingredients in it. The list is very long, so it's not as I guess, not as rich in the whole food type ingredients as the bar is. But both of these are processed. And again, you're not 300 calories, you're not going to feel very full. It might take the edge off of your hunger, but it's not going to satisfy you, because you still have a ways to get those stretch receptors engaged. And now I have of course, I'm going to have a whole food thing. So this is 300 calories, including a nice little dressing here. So what I have in here, these are the kind of foods that I'm eating now. This is part of my lifestyle. So I have in here, you can see a baked potato, a small baked potato. I have some cut up peppers, cauliflower, some grape tomatoes, some red cabbage, some red onion, shredded carrots. I've got roasted beets in the oven, and I've got Brussels sprouts that have been cooked on the stove, along with a little bit of onion and stuff. And I'm going to have this for lunch as part of my lunch today. The beauty, I'm going to add a salad with this, and I have a little bit of soup, so it won't be 300 calories for sure. But this is going to, believe me, it's going to fill me up. And I will say that when I eat this for my lunch, I'm kind of starting to feel hungry in about 4 hours or so. Okay, so this is going to last me plenty of time until dinner. And as a matter of fact, lately I've been eating a smaller dinner because I am not really, I know I need something before the end of the day, but I don't need a full meal. So this becomes like my lunch becomes bigger. And I add this dressing. So this dressing has flaxseed oil in it. So it does have oil in it. And this one is pretty, like you can see, if you can see, it's pretty, not very viscous. So I could add some water to this to make it more fluid, to pour it onto my dressing. I will add more dressing. I'm not just going to use this little bit because I'm going to add more. But apart from the flaxseed oil, which is where all of the calorie density comes, the other things in this are parsley, dill, cilantro, garlic, apple cider vinegar, lemon juice. So all things that are lower calorie, whole food stuff. And this dressing tastes amazing. So this here is also 300 calories, and this will fill you up. And so what I wanted to do is demonstrate how a Whole Foods can get you to that satiety point, for sure. And I want to say, I hear this a lot that, they need to cut back on their calories. And I think the reason I was doing this is because I mentioned yesterday I watched a documentary. I would highly recommend to watch this documentary. It's called Fed Up. I didn't remember it yesterday, but you can search on the internet and find it and watch it on, I think, a documentary site. It was made in, I think, 2014. So it's like 10 years old, but the information is still really good. And I know a lot of the focus that people tend to give when they're thinking about trying to lose weight is about reducing their calorie intake. And they had some young school-aged boys that were on the show because they are trying to lose weight. They've had an obesity issue for most of their life. And I just remember one scene where they're looking at the box on the granola bars to see how many calories, to see if they could have them. And I just wanted to scream through the TV, don't look at the calories on the processed foods. Please move to whole foods. But that doesn't work. So I just really felt that we should talk, while we're talking about food addiction, about we don't need to count calories. If we eat the foods that we were intended to eat, the whole foods, then the calorie counting and feeling full is done for us. And the beauty of it is, I'm not going to eat 300 calories. I'm going to eat more than that, but I can eat till I feel full. I don't have to go around feeling hungry and wondering where my next meal is coming and when my next meal is coming, because I ate my granola bars and I'm not full, but now I can't eat anything else for the next 3 hours until my next meal. And when you're thinking about food all the time because you're hungry, then it really messes with you. I know, I've been there. I know what that's like. So my message is that if we focus on real foods, we don't need to be worried about counting calories. Nature will do it for us. And I want to end with a quote that I have, and it actually it wasn't it was said in the documentary, but it was actually quoted by Michael Pollan, who is a journalist in the food industry. So this is great. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And that's it. It's as simple as that. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And yeah, this weekend was Easter, and there's lots of people, eating out, like eating out or eating, all these rich foods and stuff. And you may feel like you're missing out if you're not eating these, when everybody else is eating some rich foods. But number one, you have to make a choice of what you want for your life, because we know, and when we've been talking about this, that food is medicine. And when you're eating processed foods and a diet that's high in animal protein, you are adding your chances of getting a chronic disease as well as those things go. So eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And tomorrow we are going to talk about what I just said, the social pressures, because on every day when I'm at home and I'm doing my thing for myself, it's easy. But what happens when you go out? What happens if you have people in your life that are like trying? I don't think they would intentionally sabotage you, but they don't know any better, and they might be sabotaging you. So even though it's simple, it's not easy, because there's a lot of factors, and social factors are a big thing too. Kathy, any questions from you?
I thought it was a really good point about the deprivation, the feeling that you're deprived. I thought that was a really good example in the jar of just how much you could eat. I think that what could be holding people back is that the foods that aren't as good for you are a lot less expensive than the foods that are good for you, or at least that's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I know I can't remember where I was, but you could buy a bottle of Coke for less than a bottle of water, which is really sad.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's areas where I think they call them food deserts, where people don't even have access to the foods. But here's what I'm going to say, because also, I mean, I don't want to get into the organic discussion right now. We definitely don't have time for that. But I'm eating, or this is all organic food that I have here in my jar that I'm going to eat my lunch. And it costs more than the non-organic food, and there's less of it that's available. And sometimes, like, I love broccoli, but I can very rarely find good broccoli in the store that's organic. I'm so tempted to go just get the regular broccoli, because the organic broccoli looks so, like, it looks like it's been beat up and it's old and everything, whereas the inorganic the one that's just the regular non-organic, looks beautiful, right? So there's that too. But here's the thing. I believe that we need to vote with our dollars that we spend on food. And so the more people who are eating whole foods and less eating the processed foods, that's, I think, the way. Education and where we spend our food money is the only thing we can do. And I know there are programs where they're teaching people to grow food themselves as well, which is really great. So I hear you. It's definitely something that's out there, and it will hold people back. The other thing is, this takes effort, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that takes effort. Going and grabbing a granola bar from the cupboard doesn't take any effort. And I know from myself as well, I'm not on a pedestal here. I've learned all this. I've lived all this stuff. I've got all this is ready to go now, because when I finished here and I'm hungry, if it's not ready, I'm grabbing this stuff. And that's the
Yeah.
thing too. So it does take effort to eat the whole foods. That's the thing. So the whole convenience factor comes into it. There's so many factors. But again, we have to make a choice. And one of the parents in the Fed Up documentary actually said, my mom always said people will spend their time and their effort where they want to, and based on what's important to them. And so if this is important to you, then you will put your effort here. If it's not important to you, you won't. And that's all it is. And so I'm just trying to educate here.
You're doing a great job, Debbie.
Thank you. All right. So we talked about the biggest factors in people have in excess fat and obesity, and how we are signaled by our stomach. There's a bunch of different ways we're signaled, and to how when we're full, and how that impacts us, obviously, when it comes to eating. And some real examples here. I've got my jars to show my stomach and why a calorie isn't always a calorie. And so we will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're going to talk a bit about some of those social factors we had. And I also want to remind you that tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I am going to be doing another live talk on goals reinvented, and how you can set that big goal and help you feel great now. So join me tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time as well. And from that, I'm going to say bye for now. Have a wonderful day.